Yesterday, if you joined us, you saw that we're going to be talking over the next few days about the little book of Jonah that we find in the Old Testament. Today, we need to be introduced to the character whose name has been given to this book, to this man named Jonah. I draw him with a sad face because he's given a job that he doesn't want to do. He's been given a call to deliver a message from God to a group of people. And of all the responsibilities he could be given, this is probably the most distasteful for him. We read in Jonah chapter 1, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the son of Amittai, saying, 'Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me.'" Now, we need to understand what's happening here. Jonah, the son of Amittai, has a relationship with God. God is speaking to him, calling him to take the responsibility of delivering a message from God to a group of people, to the city of Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrians. Now, through history, we know much about this people group. Their conquests are legendary, as is their violence. The ways that they would attack and enslave and subjugate peoples were something that would, just the message of it, sent terror to neighbors. The Assyrians would brag about, would carve reliefs telling the stories of how harsh they would be to people, of how violent they would be. They are one of the enemies of Jonah's people, of the children of Israel. They are a threat who will eventually come upon them. And now God is saying to Jonah, I want you to deliver a message to these people. I want you to tell them that I know what kind of people they are. And I want you to call them out. I want you to tell them that the God of the universe is aware of the evil that they do, and that I will judge them. Now, we know Jonah's reaction to this. We read in the very next verse, "But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord." Now, geographically, basically, this is what's happening. Jonah is here in his home. Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrians, is here. God has told Jonah, go here, deliver the message. Jonah gets up the very next day, and Jonah buys a ticket to Tarshish, which is as far in the ancient world as he can go in the opposite direction. God is calling him to go east, and so Jonah buys a ticket to go west. And it tells us that he is running from the presence of the Lord. That God has called him to deliver this message, and Jonah's response is, I am going to get as far away from your presence, from your mission, from delivering your message to these people. Now, one of the questions that comes up as we read this is, of course, and always, why? What is motivating Jonah, who knows God? He grew up in a people who had made a covenant with God. He knows the stories of God's holiness, of God's character, of God's power. Why, when God speaks to him and charges him to deliver this message of judgment to the Assyrians, Jonah's immediate response is to run the other way. Now it's interesting because probably many times you've heard this story. One of the big reasons which is given as to why Jonah runs away is fear. I've heard it said to teens, I've heard it said to children, Jonah ran away because he was afraid. He was afraid of the Assyrians. He was afraid of taking this message of God, this message of judgment, and bringing it to the Assyrians and saying, God is going to hold you accountable for how you're acting. The God of the universe knows what you're doing, and he is going to judge you for it. That he, knowing what kind of people the Assyrians are, is afraid of what's going to happen to him. So he is fearful for his life. He's fearful to go and represent God to these people, and his fear is motivating him to run away. Now the problem with that is, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible actually tells us, and we're going to come across it as we move through the book, that his motivation for disobeying God, for running in the opposite direction of the direction he has been given, is not motivated by fear. It's motivated by something else. And what motivates Jonah is something that we have to wrestle with. Because too often, what is preventing us from responding to the call of God to deliver the message of God to the people of the world is not fear, but something much deeper. And we're going to follow that next time. Thank you for joining us. If you like this, I pray that you would share it with others so they can learn from it too.